My name is Jessica Marie Thompson. I am 28 years old, and on the evening of September 19th, I died alone in my studio apartment after my heart suddenly stopped beating while I was lying in bed. I was a graphic designer living in Denver, Colorado, single, career-focused, trying to make it in the creative world. I had a nice little apartment, a good job at a marketing firm, and a life that seemed pretty normal from the outside. But that night, everything changed in a single breath. I remember a sharp weight pressing against my chest, like invisible hands squeezing the very life out of me. My vision blurred, my arm went numb, and I couldn't cry for help. Darkness fell, then silence. Yet strangely, I was still aware. When I opened my eyes, I realized I was no longer inside my body. I was floating above my bed, looking down at myself, pale, motionless, and frighteningly fragile. In that moment, fear didn't grip me. Instead, a deep, indescribable peace filled my heart. I knew something sacred was happening, though my human mind struggled to understand. I could see the walls of my apartment fade away, as if the thin veil between life and eternity had been lifted. Time felt irrelevant. Minutes or hours no longer existed, only awareness and presence. As I gazed at my lifeless body, questions rose in my soul. Is this truly the end? Will anyone know I'm gone? What about the dreams I never fulfilled, or the prayers I never finished? Yet with those questions came an even greater realization: I was not alone. Even before I saw him, I felt his nearness. A presence more real than anything I had known on earth surrounded me, steady and unshakable. It was in that awareness that faith began to awaken. I had always believed in God from a distance. Prayers whispered only in crisis, church visits twice a year, faith treated like an accessory. But now, outside my body, I could no longer rely on routine or surface-level belief. All that remained was trust. Trust that the Jesus I had heard about as a child truly held my soul in his hands. Trust that death was not the end but the doorway into a deeper truth. And so, even as I floated above the still form on my bed, I whispered from my spirit, "Lord Jesus, I trust you. I am yours even in death." As I hovered between death and eternity, the silence around me shifted. A radiance, unlike any earthly light, began to fill the space. It was not harsh or blinding, but warm, alive, and embracing. In the heart of that light, a figure appeared, Jesus. Not the distant image from paintings or church windows, but living, real, more present than anything I had ever known. His eyes met mine, and in them, I saw both truth and tenderness. "Jessica!" He called my name, and the sound of his voice was like a river, gentle, yet strong, flowing into every empty corner of my soul. With one glance, he knew everything about me, my failures, my fears, my secret battles, and yet there was no condemnation, only love that pierced deeper than shame. He extended his hand, and I instinctively reached for it. The moment I touched him, peace beyond comprehension washed over me. All the burdens I had carried, all the guilt I had hidden, melted away in that embrace. He led me forward, and suddenly we were walking in a garden unlike anything on earth. The air itself seemed alive, carrying the fragrance of purity and joy. "Sit with me," Jesus said, and we found ourselves on a simple wooden bench by a stream that shimmered with light. We did not rush into words. His presence alone spoke louder than any sermon I had ever heard. For the first time in my life, I felt completely known and completely safe. Finally, I asked, "Am I really dead?" Jesus smiled, and his answer was filled with certainty. "Your body has stopped, but your soul is more alive now than ever before. I brought you here not to frighten you, but to show you the truth, that life is more than survival, and faith is more than ritual. You were made for relationship, not religion. You were made for me." At that moment, I realized that everything I had been searching for, success, love, fulfillment, was here in the one who sat beside me. As I sat beside him, the beauty of the garden seemed to fade, and suddenly we were standing in a reflection of my own apartment. But it was not as I had left it. Everything looked tainted, as though an unseen darkness had spread across the walls and furniture. The air felt heavy, suffocating, and I could no longer pretend that everything about my life was normal. Jesus turned toward me, his eyes filled with both sorrow and compassion. "Jessica," he said gently, This is how your life appears in the spiritual realm. What you call private, what you hide even from yourself, is never hidden from me. I see not only your actions but your heart. My own chest ached with shame. I wanted to argue. I'm not a bad person. I never hurt anyone. I always tried my best. But I couldn't speak because his presence revealed the truth more clearly than words could deny. He pointed to the nightstand, and I knew exactly what he was referring to. The secret habits, the quiet compromises, the sins I excused as just human. Tears filled my eyes. Lord, I tried to stop. I really did, I whispered. He nodded softly, I know. But you tried in your own strength. And without surrender, your strength will always fail. Faith isn't about striving harder, it's about yielding deeper. The chains of sin are not broken by effort, but by surrender. With a wave of his hand, the scene changed again. Now I saw a river flowing with light. This is what I long to give you, Jesus said. Cleansing, renewal, freedom. But you must choose to step into my grace. I will never force you. Love must be chosen. At that moment, my soul trembled with both fear and hope. Fear of letting go, yet hope that real freedom was possible. His words echoed deep within me. You were never meant to fight alone. You were meant to walk with me. And friend, if you are listening to this story, remember, the same Jesus who met me in my brokenness is reaching out to you. Your secret battles are not hidden from him, and neither is his mercy. Leave a comment below, share your heart, and together let us ask for his covering grace and protection today. The river shimmered with a brilliance that seemed alive, as if every drop carried a heartbeat of eternity. I stood at its edge, trembling. Part of me wanted to run back, to cling to the familiar, even if it was broken. But another part of me, deeper and stronger, longed for the freedom Jesus promised. Step in, he said, his voice both tender and commanding. This is the river of life. It will not harm you. It will heal you. I hesitated. My thoughts raced. What if I don't deserve this? What if the stains are too deep? Yet as I looked into his eyes, I realized the river wasn't about my worthiness. It was about his love. Slowly, I placed one foot into the water. Immediately, warmth surrounded me, not like ordinary water but like living light that wrapped itself around my soul. The moment I was fully submerged, everything changed. Memories of guilt, shame, and loneliness surfaced like dark clouds, then dissolved, carried away by the current. It was as though years of hidden chains snapped one by one. I gasped, not for air but for joy. For the first time, I felt clean, not just forgiven but new. Jesus stood by the shore, watching with eyes full of delight. This, he said, is what my grace does. It doesn't merely cover sin, it transforms. It washes away shame and replaces it with purpose. You are not what your past says. You are who I say you are, beloved, redeemed and free. When I stepped out of the river, I felt lighter, as though the weight of an entire lifetime had been lifted. My heart no longer carried the echoes of chains but the melody of freedom. I looked at Jesus and whispered, "Thank you, Lord." He placed his hand over mine. Remember this, Jessica. Freedom is not found in willpower but in surrender. Walk with me, and you will remain free. As I stepped out of the river, renewed and free, Jesus guided me to another place. The scene shifted, and suddenly we stood inside a radiant room filled with warmth and light. There was a sense of holiness there, as if every breath carried reverence. This, Jesus said softly, is how I designed love and intimacy to be. Before me, a vision unfolded, a husband and wife, joined in holy matrimony, loving one another with purity and tenderness. Their union was not just physical but spiritual, an expression of covenant and trust. They glowed with the same golden light I had seen in Jesus' presence, and their love reflected something far greater, the love of Christ for his people. I felt tears welling in my eyes. It was beautiful beyond words, nothing like the counterfeit images I had once filled my mind with. There was no emptiness here, no shame, no exploitation, only joy, unity, and sacred love. Jesus turned to me and said, "Jessica, this is my plan." Sexuality was never meant to be cheap or distorted. It was designed as a holy gift between one man and one woman, joined in covenant before me. But the enemy has twisted this gift, turning it into chains of lust, addiction, and brokenness. Pornography is not love, it is bondage. Masturbation is not freedom, it is deception. What I have for my children is so much greater. His words pierced me with both sorrow and hope. I saw with painful clarity how I had traded something sacred for something shallow. Yet I also felt his mercy, reminding me that my past didn't define me, his love did. Jessica, he continued, your worth is not measured by your failures. You are more than your struggles. You are my beloved, and I long to restore you to the fullness of my design. I nodded, overwhelmed by both conviction and gratitude. For the first time, I understood that God's boundaries were not punishments but protections, guidelines meant to preserve beauty, intimacy, and holiness. After showing me the beauty of his design, Jesus looked at me with a seriousness that pierced deeper than words. His presence still radiated love, but now there was also a weight of purpose in his gaze. Jessica, he said, you have seen the truth. You have tasted freedom. But your time here is not yet complete. I am sending you back. My heart trembled. Back! Lord, how can I go back after experiencing all this? What if I fail again? What if I fall into the same chains? Jesus reached out, placing his hands gently on my face. You will not go back alone. My spirit will go with you. You will walk in my strength, not your own. And now you understand, the battle you faced was never just physical, it was spiritual. And you must share this truth, so that others may find freedom as well. In his hand appeared a small scroll, glowing with light. He gave it to me, and as I opened it, words seemed to burn into my very heart. Tell my children that I see their secret struggles. Tell them that I do not condemn them, but I long to set them free. Tell them that what they hide in darkness is already known to me, and that my love is stronger than their shame. Tell them I am coming soon. Tell them to be ready. Tears streamed down my face. The weight of the message was heavy, yet filled with hope. For the first time, I realized that my story was not just about my rescue, it was about a mission. Lord, I whispered, I will go. Even if it is hard, I will speak. Even if I am misunderstood, I will share. Because your love is too great to keep silent. Jesus smiled, and in his smile I felt strength flowing through me. The garden began to fade, and I sensed myself being drawn back toward my earthly body. The light of the garden faded, and I felt myself pulled downward, falling, spinning, rushing through space until, with a sudden gasp, I opened my eyes. Bright lights above me blurred, voices shouted all around, and I realized I was back in my body. Paramedics leaned over me, sweat on their brows, their hands working frantically. She's back, one of them cried. Another looked at his watch and shook his head in disbelief. 22 minutes. No brain damage. This shouldn't even be possible. I could barely speak, but one word escaped my lips. Jesus. Tears ran down my face as the reality hit me. I had been dead, and now I lived again. Not because of medicine alone, but because the Lord himself had chosen to return me. I spent the next 10 days in the hospital, recovering physically while my heart burned with the message he had placed inside me. When I finally returned home, the first thing I did was remove everything that had once chained me: apps, websites, magazines, memories of the past. I knew there was no going back. Then I picked up the phone and called my sister. Through trembling words, I confessed my struggles, not just the addiction but the truth of what Jesus had shown me. For the first time, I stepped out of secrecy into honesty. Her reaction stunned me, not judgment, but compassion. She prayed with me and connected me with a Christian counselor. Week after week, I learned that my story was not unique. Many women were battling the same chains, hidden in silence. And every time I remembered the garden, the river, and the scroll, I knew why I was alive, to bring hope to the broken. Friend, I share this with you now so you understand. Life is fragile, but God's mercy is mighty. He can raise the dead, heal the addicted, and transform the ashamed into testimonies of grace. If you are listening, don't harden your heart. Open it. Let him break the chains, just as he broke mine. Comment below with your prayer or your story, and together we will stand as witnesses of his power to change lives. In the weeks that followed, the weight of the scroll never left my heart. The message Jesus had entrusted to me burned like fire in my bones, urging me not to remain silent. At first, I shared only with a few close friends, trembling as I confessed what I had once hidden in shame. To my surprise, Instead of turning away, they leaned in. Some cried, admitting they too had battles they had never spoken of. Others thanked me for daring to be honest, because it gave them the courage to step out of secrecy. Soon, I felt the Spirit's prompting to share beyond my circle. I stood before my women's group at church, my hands shaking, my voice unsteady, but my heart anchored in His promise. I told them about the night I died, about the garden, the river, the scroll, and above all, the love of Jesus that does not condemn but restores. Silence filled the room, then tears, then prayers. Women who had carried hidden chains for years finally opened up, realizing they were not alone. From there, doors began to open. Online platforms, small gatherings, even strangers who had heard whispers of my story reached out. Each time I shared, the same miracle unfolded. Hearts softened, chains broke, and hope rose where despair had once lived. I learned that my weakness became the very vessel of His strength, and my shame was transformed into testimony. I am not perfect, nor am I free from temptation forever. But now I know how to fight, not in silence, not in my own strength, but with His Word and His Spirit. And each time I see a life changed, I remember why Jesus sent me back, because His love is too powerful to be hidden. The more I shared my testimony, the more I realized this was bigger than me. It wasn't just about freedom from addiction or release from shame, it was about preparation. Over and over, I remember the final words Jesus spoke to me before sending me back. Tell them I am coming soon. Tell them to be ready. At first, those words filled me with fear. Ready? How could anyone truly be ready for the return of the Lord? But as I prayed, His Spirit gave me understanding. Readiness is not about perfection, but about surrender. It is not about proving ourselves worthy, but about walking daily in His grace, allowing His Spirit to shape us into vessels of love and holiness. When I stood before groups of women, I would remind them, Jesus is not returning for perfect people, He is returning for surrendered hearts. He is seeking those who have laid down their pride, confessed their weakness, and chosen to walk in His light. Every time I said those words, I felt heaven's urgency pressing on my soul. I also began to see how my own struggles became part of that message. My failures were not the end of my story, they were the beginning of surrender. And surrender is the very soil where readiness grows. One evening, as I prayed with a group of young women, I sensed the Spirit whisper, "Call them to repentance, call them to hope." So I did. With trembling words, I invited them not just to seek freedom, but to prepare their hearts for His soon return. Many fell to their knees, weeping, not from fear but from longing to be found faithful when He comes. As the months passed, my life was no longer the same. Every conversation, every testimony, every prayer became part of the mission Jesus gave me. Yet the core of the message remained simple. His love is greater than your shame, His mercy is stronger than your chains, and His return is nearer than you think. I often found myself reflecting on that night, the heart stopping, the garden, the river, the scroll, and the words of Jesus that reshaped my soul. They were not just memories, they were a commission. And each time I told the story, I saw hearts awaken, burdens lift, and chains break. It reminded me that my life, once filled with secret bondage, had been turned into a living testimony of His grace. One evening, as I prayed quietly, I sensed the Lord speak to my heart again. "Jessica, tell them one more time I love them. I am not against them. I died for them. I want them free. I want them ready." Those words brought me to tears, because they were not just for me, they were for everyone. Friend, as I close this testimony, I want you to know, nothing you have done is too dark for His light. No chain is too heavy for His power. No heart is too broken for His healing. The same Jesus who raised me after 22 minutes of death is the same Jesus who longs to raise you from the death of sin, despair, and fear. This is not the time to delay. This is the time to surrender. Not halfway, not with excuses, but fully, because His arms are open and His return is near. I invite you today, bow your heart, call on His name, and step into the freedom He offers. Comment below with your prayer, your decision, or even your cry for help. Let us walk together in faith, knowing that when He comes, He will find us ready, washed, renewed, and alive in His love.